Don't go out and start buying stuff. Learn how to do it first. Once you buy something, you own it. I can tell you, if you take your check, you write your check like this to the government, you hand it to them. They're not giving you money back.
So, hey, you're interested in learning more about tax foreclosures in New York, and good news for you, you're at the right place, because this is Ted Thomas, and Ted Thomas has over 30 years experience in real estate, and he knows everything. He's basically the authority on making money on tax sales. So, Ted, as always, it's great to have you with us. Just to clarify, to start this off, okay, we're talking about tax foreclosures in New York. So, you and I talked about tax liens and tax deeds. Is that the same thing as a tax foreclosure in New York? Could you clear that up for me, please, if you would?
Okay. All right. So tax liens are taking place in New York, and tax defaulted property. All right. So two things are actually happening in New York. So there's actually two counties in New York, and the two counties that I'm going to tell you about are on Long Island. And one is called Nassau County, and the other is called Suffolk County. So anybody in New York knows exactly what I'm talking. So a little strip sticking out there. They sell tax lien certificates. Now, what does that mean? That means the people that didn't pay their property tax, those people are going to get a notice from the treasurer that said, you didn't pay your tax on your property, so we're going to issue a tax lien certificate. All right, so think about those two counties for a second. Now just change gears. So now let's go to the Hudson River, everything west of the Hudson River in New York. All of those counties, they use a little bit different system. They're not quite so benevolent. Those counties say, okay, you didn't pay your tax, so we're going to have a tax defaulted auction. In other words, they're going to send many notices of default and say you didn't pay your tax. If you don't pay it, you ignore it, they're going to confiscate the property, and they're going to sell it at a tax defaulted auction. Now, let me repeat. So tax liens in New York, you're in the right place, are on Suffolk County and Nassau County. But over here by the Hudson River and west of that, all of those counties are going to sell tax defaulted property. So there's a world of difference. One, in Long Island, they're just selling a piece of paper, and the other one, they're actually going to sell you the property, and you're going to get a deed to that property. You're going to get like a treasurer's deed or a collector's deed or a quitclaim. You're going to own the property at the end of the auction. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. But let me just to clarify, though. So I understand the difference between the tax lien and tax deed. But just to clarify, when they use the term tax foreclosure in New York, is that talking about a tax lien or a tax deed, or is it talking about both? I mean, is it just another way of saying both?
More than likely, people have just confused it and don't realize that they sell both in New York.
Okay.
Most people won't realize it. So they're just saying tax foreclosure. So then your question would come right back with, well, is it a tax lien or is it a tax deed? Tax lien, we know there's only two counties. All the other counties in New York actually sell the property.
Okay. So, all right. So if we're talking about, let's say, an auction with a tax lien versus an auction with a tax deed, does it work the same way? How do those work? How are they different in terms of, securing either a tax lien or a tax deed?
Well, a tax lien auction is pretty simple. I have an auction. I'll show you a list of those. I just picked one right here in Florida. So they'll have hundreds of these. Hundreds of people don't pay their tax, maybe even thousands. And they have a big list like this. And that's just a list of numbers. It just means the property numbers on there and how much the taxes due. So all you have to do at a tax lien auction is raise your hand and pay the tax. So you're going to pay someone else's tax. And when you pay someone else's tax, what they're going to do, I'm just reaching for stuff on my desk. Okay, when you pay someone else's tax, they're going to issue a piece of paper, and it's like this. It's called a tax lien certificate. So I raised my hand. I said, I want to buy that one, and I paid someone else's taxes. They give me this receipt. It's a receipt, okay? And now I own a certificate. All right, now there's nothing to do once you own the certificate. You just take this home, you put it on your desk, and then you do what I'm doing now, just sit on my rusty dusty and wait to get paid. Most of those people will come in and pay. If they don't come in and pay, well, then I'm going to get the property.
So, okay, so wait, to be real clear there, because when you say they give you the certificate, it's not the homeowner, it's the government's giving you the certificate, correct?
Oh, boy. Well, thanks for correcting me on that. That's good, because that's absolutely right. This is all run by the local government, the local county, either Suffolk County. Now we're in New York now. We're just talking about New York. Suffolk County or Nassau County, they're going to have an auction and they'll have them listed in a newspaper. Anybody can buy at the tax. It's a public auction. Anybody can be there. As a matter of fact, they probably do the whole thing online because they don't want to hold the auction. They hold it online, so you can just type in it and buy a certificate.
Okay, and then you mentioned so you hang on to the certificate. So, your rusty dusty, I think, is what you use. You hang on. How long do you wait? What's the redemption period? Is it the same in every county?
What I'm referring to when I say I'm sitting on my rusty dusty, it means I'm just a passive investor. You can't go to the property. You can't intimidate the owner. You can't charge them rent. You can't tell them you're going to throw them out. You can't do anything. You just own a certificate that Suffolk or Nassau County says we're going to pay you. It's only about 10% interest in Nassau County. So you're going to get a 10% interest at the highest level in those counties. So it's a passive investment, which some people, they don't want to buy property. Now, I like to buy property because I think I can get a better deal. But a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want a safe, secure investment. I think a tax lien certificate is probably the safest investment in America today. Why? Because once I buy that certificate, I really control that property. If the people don't pay me, I get the property. I'm going to tell you right now, 95, 97% of people come in and pay you. So you're going to get whatever you bid. You're going to get your money back plus a high interest rate. So that's a nice, safe investment.
Is the interest rate the same in every county in New York?
Well, there's only two counties. There's Nassau and there's Suffolk. All the rest of the counties, you're not going to get any interest. You're going to get the property because they're all tax deed.
Okay.
This,
all right.
Yeah. So
could you explain then? Because you held up a list there, and I know that one was from Florida, but obviously then if I'm looking for a tax foreclosure in New York, I can get the list there too. How do I get that list? Who exactly do I contact to get those lists?
just get on the phone or do an email. The county treasurer in every county has that list. Or you could go to our interactive map auction calendar. We have all of them in the whole United States where you can do it electronically. But generally speaking, what people do is they call the county and say, can I get a list? Like this list, I just downloaded it from the internet. You could do the same thing, or you could get, it'll always be published in the local newspaper. Problem is, they publish in the newspaper the day they're having the sale. It'd be nice to know ahead of time because I wouldn't buy anything unless I looked at it. I'm not buying anything unless I know what it is.
So when you get the certificate, like how long does that person have to pay off that tax before you're going to get the property?
Okay, I'll give you kind of a flexible answer. Generally speaking, in Nassau and Suffolk County, you have 2 years. But you need to go to the county records and look it up because they have all kinds of things that say, well, in certain circumstances, the person doesn't have to pay for 3 years or doesn't have to pay for 4 years. So I don't want to give you a number and that it's the wrong number. Okay, so what people have to do, it's just like any investment, you have to do your due diligence. What you do is you call the county. They're going to give you a list. Now you're going to take the list, and that's going to give you a property number. Then you should check out the property, and then you should check with the county. Will they pay you off in 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years? I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be one of those. But the regulation, and I'm not an attorney, I can't quote you all this stuff because I can't give legal advice. You need to look, and if it says 2 years, well, you get paid in 2 years. If it says there's exceptions to the rule, well, believe me, you're always going to get the one with the exception, so they won't pay you until 3 years, but you're getting the idea.
Is investing in tax foreclosures in New York, is that something I can do here in Cleveland, or do I need to live in New York?
Oh, good question. You can do tax liens in any state that sells tax lien. You can, if they do it online, you can just go online because you can be in Cleveland and go online in New York and buy. You can buy in New York. Now, keep in mind, you're going to have to transfer the money. So, you can't say, I'm going to mail it in. You have to have the money available when you buy it. So you're going to have to be prepared to do that.
Is that something, so you're talking about
pay for it right now.
So you are saying I could be, they do an online auction then, so I could be here in Cleveland and take part of that. And
I think every county in the United States is doing that. I would be surprised if they didn't. Now, the counties, they're not, as up to date as we'd like them to be, but I think everybody's online now. 30 years ago, when started, we had to drive up to the county and go in and give the check to the treasurer. That's what we had to do. But no more. Now you could be anywhere and be able to do it.
Hey, I'd just like to remind everybody who's watching, if you have a question that I'm not asking here, feel free to leave it in the comments section below, because Ted and his team will take a look at that and give you an answer. Ted, there is one question I did get from somebody. I want to ask it to you. Is there a moratorium on tax lien foreclosures in New York State? Apparently, this is something they saw in a Google search.
A moratorium. Okay, well,
Moratorium. Yes, I need another pair of glasses.
A moratorium is basically a stay or a stop. So we've been through COVID in the past, and when COVID came along, certain states said people don't have to pay their mortgage, and so we really need to talk about that a little bit. They said you didn't have to pay your rent, you didn't have to pay mortgages. There's all kinds of things in a moratorium. Now, I can't quote them because I'm not, in New York and I'm not an attorney, but the moratorium basically said stop, and a lot of people stopped paying their rent. Now, that moratorium was in place for a certain period of time, but to my understanding of it now, the moratorium has expired or shut down or has been canceled. And how a person could find that out is they could just go to the county website and ask the question, or they're probably going to have, knowing the government, they're probably 44 pages telling you it's now been canceled. So the pages I read said it was canceled.
Now, Ted, you mentioned, you're not a lawyer. If I am interested in doing, tax foreclosures in New York, should I have a lawyer, involved to look over things?
No. You don't need an attorney for any of this. This was all invented by the Pilgrims, for goodness sake. This has been around for 200 years. People couldn't read or write when they started all this. So if you can read and write, anybody can do all this.
So, Ted, obviously we talk about tax lien, tax deeds. Is that the same as a mortgage foreclosure? I mean, what does that mean?
So there's going to be 1,000 people that are watching this video, whether you're in New York City or somewhere in New York. Mortgage foreclosures are a bank trying to recover collateral. Now, would you like to go to those auctions? Many people want to go to those auctions because late night television talks about that. Well, I can tell you right now, that bank, if they get the property, they're not going to give it away. They're going to sell it for the amount that's still owed on it. So when they're taking the collateral back, they're selling it for that price. So let's say it was a $200,000 house with a $150,000 mortgage. The starting bid at a foreclosure auction is $150,000. So that's not some great deal, nothing like a tax defaulted auction where the property is being taken back by the county and it's being taken back for 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. Do you see the difference? In one case, they're trying to collect taxes are 1 or 2% of value. The other case, they're trying to collect all the money that's owed on that house. All that money that's owed could be hundreds of thousands. Taxes is, 5 or 10% of the value. So which auction do you want to end up with? You want to go to the tax defaulted auction. They sell properties for 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar. Is that good? Yeah. All right, that's a starting bid. I don't know what it'll sell for. But at a bank foreclosure auction, starting bid is the price they took the property back at. So whatever was owed, these are big numbers. People could own 50,000, 75, 500,000 they could owe on a house. That's where the bidding is going to start. Oh, that's a heck of a place to start. You need cash. You got to have cash for this. I'm going to the tax auction. When I learned about tax auction 30 years ago, I never looked back at those foreclosures. And believe me, I trademarked the name Mr. Foreclosure when I wrote my first book on it back in the 80s. Well, when I found out about tax defaulted property, 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar starting bid, who cares if someone builds a little bit? They're not going to bid 80%. Banks take properties back at 80%. Do you want to pay 80% of value for a property? I don't.
So, Ted, let me ask, and obviously you can't go into details here, but we've talked about a lot of things. So let's just say I'm interested in doing, tax foreclosure in New York. Let's say I already have my list. Just briefly, what are all the things I should be thinking about? Like, how do I pick the property? What should I do then? How should I bid? Just loosely, take me through the whole thing of how I'm going to make money off that.
Well, there's lots of ways to make money on it, so it's a good question. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to get yourself educated. Now, how are you going to educate yourself? First, you need to know about the auction. So why don't you go to a dozen of those and see what's going on at auction, see how they do it. So you need to understand the highest bidder is going to get the property. When you get the property, there's not going to be a mortgage. The mortgage is going to be wiped out, or deed of trust. It's gone. So now you're going to own the property. What are you going to do with the property? See, everybody gets it reversed. They want to go to the auction. Don't worry about going to the auction. Look at what they have, figure out how you're going to sell it, then go to the auction. See, people go there and then they pray that they're going to be able to sell it. Prayer is not a good business strategy. What you need to do, if you're going to buy something at the auction, you've got to know what the sales price is. That means you have to have an exit strategy. 99% of the people at auction, they don't know what they're going to sell it for. I mean, I go to so many auctions, a couple will be standing beside me, and he'll turn to her after they bought a property and say, okay, Gladys, let's go see what we bought. Oh, what if they bought a house in the ghetto? What if they bought a house that's falling down? What if they bought a house that's burned down? The county said, here's the property. You got to go check it out. So you want to learn how to check property. You want to learn how to sell property. The average person has never sold, they can't even sell their car, let alone sell a big fancy house. How are you going to do that? So you need to get educated. Now, you're going to get that in a 30-minute infomercial? No. I can tell you right now, when we start people, we say, come to our all-day class, and we charge them $47, and they have to stay with us from 11 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. If they're still on there at 5 in the afternoon, we know they're serious. All right, you need to get educated first, not go to the auction first. So I'm not telling you not to go to auction, but I can tell you when you go in the auction room, 99% of people have never thought about what they're going to sell the property for. The pros, they go there, they already know what they can sell for before they buy it because they stop bidding. Because if I stop bidding here and I've got margin to sell, I'm okay. It's just a business. You don't want to buy because you want to buy property. Who wants properties? They're used and abused. Some of them are junk. Some of them are okay. So I'm looking for the ones that are okay. I don't want any junk. But some people buy the junk. I said, what'd you buy? I don't know what I bought. You don't know what you bought. Well, that's like saying I'm going to get married. I've never seen the woman. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So mortgage foreclosures are dramatically different than tax auction. Mortgage foreclosure, the bank is trying to get a house back. When they get the house back, they're going to try to sell it and recover their collateral, recover their money they lent. So that could be a high number. At tax auctions, they're not trying to recover anything except a little bit of taxes, 1 or 2%, 5% of value. So there's a world of difference between those two sales.
You know, Ted, that introductory class you mentioned, that sounds like folks get a lot out of that. Now, again, you say that's an all-day class, and during that, and obviously you can't come out of that class being an expert. It sounds like you'll have a really good idea if you want to pursue this or not. Do you cover, again, kind of all the aspects we have during that class about, how do you find the property? What do you do at the auction? How do you?
Oh, sure. We actually show a good question. We actually show examples, and we have people that have done it explaining it. So the class is not just me talking for 6 hours. I bring in my coaches to help me with it. And we show the people ABCs, all the step-by-step process of tax lien certificates and tax default product. So we show them all that. Now, again, in 6 hours, we can't teach you everything we know in 6 hours. But would you rather have 6 hours where you learn from a half a dozen people about tax default property, or would you rather have a 30-minute infomercial that said, go out and start buying stuff? Don't go out and start buying stuff. Learn how to do it first. Once you buy something, you own it. I can tell you, if you take your check, you write your check like this to the government, you hand it to them. They're not giving you money back. People buy burned down houses. People buy after there's been a flood. Can you imagine buying in the state of Florida after a hurricane went by? Well, sure, there might have been a picture online of what it looked like 2 years ago. What happened after the hurricane was there? Well, if they sell the property, once it's sold in auction, it's sold. The government doesn't give you money back. This is serious business.
So, Ted, there's if you look online, you see a lot of foreclosed property in New York for sale. What are the risks of buying a foreclosed property from a bank?
Okay, well, foreclosures are across New York. I mean, over 1,000 people are trying to find out about foreclosures just in New York. So this is a really active thing. So the banks are not out to hurt anybody. What the bank is doing in a foreclosure is they're recovering their collateral. So if they recover the collateral, what are they going to do with it? Well, they've got the collateral, which they lent on, so they're going to try to sell it for whatever price they took it back. The bank is not allowed to make a profit. So if they took the property back and $100,000 was owed on it, That's the starting bid. Now let's do a comparison here. All right, if we're talking about tax defaulted property and the government takes a property, all the government wants to do, the local government, is they just want to collect the back taxes. So the back taxes might be $2,000, $4,000, $6,000. That's a lot different than a $100,000 mortgage. So you see the difference. Why I never looked back. I'm a foreclosure guy. That's where my original training was. I never looked back when I found out about tax fraud. If I can buy for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, well, that's what I want. If I buy bank foreclosures, I might have to spend 50 cents, 75 or 80 cents on the dollar. Quite a difference. So foreclosures are popular. Most everybody's talking foreclosures, talking about bank foreclosure. I'm an expert on tax defaulted. I want to do it for 10 and 20 cents on the dollar.
So you recommend definitely instead of buying a bank foreclosure, you're recommending what you know is tax deed foreclosure.
Well, absolutely. Now, I come from the other business, but I'm going to tell you right now, why would I want to spend 80 cents on the dollar when I can spend 20, 30, or 40 cents on the dollar? Makes more sense, right?
Well, Ted, you shared a lot with us, and again, in under an hour, and appreciate that. It gives everybody a chance to, just know a little bit more about it. If I'm thinking tax foreclosures in New York, I got to know a lot. Hey, if somebody's interested in your introductory class, what's their next step from, after watching this video?
Well, they can go right below me and they can register for that class. Again, I don't do free stuff. We have websites people can look at with a lot of free stuff, but we don't do any classes free. We tell people, invest $47. If you don't think you get your money's worth, we'll give you money back. But the point is, for people make a small investment, they stay with us for the 6 hours, they're either serious or they're not serious. But for $47, they can make a heck of a lot better decision than not going to that class, that's for sure.
Well, Ted, thank you so much. And for all you folks watching, why don't you take Ted up on it? $47, 6 hours to find out if you really like this. And at the very least, before you leave this video, why don't you subscribe to Ted's channel? So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.